Since you're the wife, it's only natural for you to pay for my mom's surgery. Didn't I tell you before? We have to help each other as a family. I gave you the chance to take care of my mother even though you have no parents. I'd rather you be thankful."
Following Patrick, his mother continued.
That's right. There are many people in the world who want to be the one to take care of their parents, but can't. You're fortunate, so be thankful. Anyway, you're no longer needed. We don't need a wife who uses work as an excuse to neglect household chores. I don't ever want to see your face again.
That's right. This is me at my mother's house. Please leave as soon as possible.
I had paid a large sum of $30,000 to save my mother-in-law's life, but their harsh words brought me to tears. I quickly packed my things and fled from their house. My name is Jennifer, a 30-year-old working housewife in my second year of marriage. My husband, Patrick, who is 3 years older than me, and I had what you might call a workplace romance. It all started when we happened to sit next to each other at a year-end party. Although we worked for the same company, we were in different departments and floors, so we had hardly spoken before. Patrick was cheerful and had high communication skills, making our conversation lively. Gradually getting closer after that day, Patrick confessed, and we started dating. On weekends, we would go on drive dates, or I would visit his apartment to cook for him. Dreaming of a future together, Patrick proposed to me with a serious look in his eyes, and we happily got married. Many people attended our wedding, celebrating our marriage. Having lost my parents in an accident during my student years, I decorated their seats with their photographs in the wedding. Though they couldn't see me as a bride in life, I'm sure they were happy in heaven. Losing both parents at once had me crying every day, but I believed I could build a warm family with my kind husband. I was filled with happiness. We rented a new home, close to our work, and started our life together. The early days of our marriage were very happy. My in-laws were sensible and kind, warmly accepting me in their family. Their home was about an hour's drive from ours. We visited my in-laws' home several times a month, and they were always kind, without any of those typical in-law harassments.
Jennifer, we think of you as our own daughter, so please think of us as your real parents and rely on us.
My mother-in-law, with her cheerful smile, would often say this at every opportunity. Blessed with wonderful in-laws, I thought my married life was going smoothly. However, about a year into our marriage, my father-in-law passed away, leading us to live with my mother-in-law. She had a chronic illness and visited the hospital several times a month. Having had a good relationship with her and wanting to help, I readily agreed to live together.
Jennifer, thank you. I've always been frail and weak. I'm sorry, but I'll have to leave all the household chores to you.
And just like that, our life together at my in-laws' house began. I spent my days busily juggling work and household chores. However, my once kind mother-in-law changed her attitude completely, treating me like a servant. If I ever fell short, she would scold me, calling me a useless wife. About a month after we started living together, I was washing my hands after returning from work when my mother-in-law came up to me, looking displeased.
Where have you been lazing around until this time? I'm starving. Hurry up and prepare dinner. After that, you need to clean and do the laundry. You're really incompetent if you can't do this without being told.
I'm sorry. I hurried to the kitchen to start making dinner. My mother-in-law lay on the living room sofa watching TV. I didn't know what she did during the day, but the area around the sofa was cluttered with trash. After finishing dinner, I gathered the laundry and started cleaning. The house had many rooms, making cleaning time consuming. Finally, I went to the dining room, only to find that Patrick and my mother-in-law had already finished eating, leaving the used dishes on the table. Dinner was always prepared in abundance, but as expected, there was nothing left, eaten clean. I sighed and started cleaning up after dinner. While washing the dishes, perhaps due to fatigue, I became distracted and accidentally dropped a dish. The dish broke with a loud crash. Quickly trying to pick up the pieces, I cut my finger. Entering the living room to get the first aid kit, my mother-in-law looked at me with an angry expression and said this.
You're really clumsy. Can't even clean up properly. Such a useless wife.
Patrick, showing no concern, only just browsed his smartphone. At that moment, tired as I was, I inadvertently spoke my mind. I don't want to hear that from someone who can't even do something as simple as putting trash in the bin. Realizing what I had said, I came back to my senses. My mother-in-law's face twisted in anger as she raised her voice.
What did you just say? How dare you speak like that, being just a wife?
Patrick, sitting next to his mother, also started blaming me.
Hey, cut it out. Do you enjoy bullying my mother who's sick? You, having no parents, might not understand, but isn't family supposed to help each other? Don't take your anger out on my mom.
Patrick, who used to help with the housework, stopped doing anything as soon as we started living in his parents' house. Moreover, he began to be stingy with the living expenses, finding excuses. He said nothing when his mother scolded me. But when I spoke up against his mother, he would take his mother's side and blame me. Since living with my in-laws, the word divorce has crossed my mind many times. However, thinking about the people who blessed our marriage made me feel guilty, and I couldn't take that step. One day, when I came home from work, I found Patrick and his mother having a serious conversation. As I braced myself due to the unusual and strange atmosphere, my husband, noticing my return, approached me to talk.
Jennifer, leave the chores for now and come here. We need to talk about something important.
Following Patrick's request, I approached them, and Patrick hesitantly began to speak.
Actually, my mom has been diagnosed with a serious illness. Fortunately, she can be saved with surgery, but she's frail and doesn't have insurance, so we can't afford any high medical costs. We need about $30,000 to manage somehow, so...
Are you asking me to pay for the treatment with the savings I had before I married you? When I asked, Patrick quietly nodded. His mother, looking pale, looked at me with pleading eyes next to him. I had just about $30,000 in savings. If I agreed, my mother-in-law could be saved. Since living together, I had been treated harshly, but that might have been due to her poor health. If the treatment went well, perhaps we could return to a good relationship like before. I decided to cover the treatment costs for my mother-in-law. All right, I'll make the transfer tomorrow, so please give me your account details. The next day, I went to the bank during my lunch break and made the deposit to the designated account. When I returned home after work, it was rare for Patrick to be home already. Laughter from both Patrick and my mother-in-law echoed from the living room. Hearing a suspicious conversation, I stopped in my tracks.
She's such a fool, isn't she? Never thought it would go this smoothly.
Indeed. But we thought she'd have more money since she lost her parents in a car accident. Well, it can't be helped.
They seemed too engrossed in their joy to notice my return, laughing loudly and making a noise. What's that supposed to mean? Upon entering the living room and quietly asking with a trembling voice, my husband responded with a hideous smile.
Oh, you were back? Were you eavesdropping on our conversation? Well, that's too bad. Like I said before, it's only natural for you as a wife to pay for my mom's surgery. We have to help each other as a family. I gave you the chance to take care of my mother, even though you have no parents. I'd rather you be thankful.
My mother-in-law followed up with a similar sentiment.
That's right. There are so many people in the world who wish they could take care of their parents but can't. You should feel fortunate. For now, you're no longer needed. We don't need a wife who uses work as an excuse to neglect her household duties. Please, just get out of my sight.
Exactly. This is me at my mother's house. Please leave as soon as possible.
After paying a significant amount of $30,000 to save my mother-in-law's life, I couldn't help but question whether she was truly ill and in need of surgery. Of course, I wasn't expecting gratitude, but I couldn't deny the hope I had for a better relationship like we had before. However, their harsh words brought me to the brink of despair. I quickly packed my things and left my in-laws' house. Having nowhere else to go, I spent the night at a hotel. After checking in and sitting on the bed, I began to feel a bit calmer. Indeed, according to my mother-in-law, I might have been a useless daughter-in-law. Despite that, I had always tried my best. I wondered if my husband and mother-in-law were only after the money left by my parents. Recalling the happiness we shared before living together made tears overflow and blur my vision. After a good cry, I finally resolved to take action. The next day, I contacted the hospital where my mother-in-law was supposedly receiving treatment to inquire about her condition. However, due to the confidentiality policies, they refused to provide any information without her consent. If she had indeed been suffering from a serious illness and the money was used for her treatment, I could have accepted that. But recalling the behavior of those two, I couldn't trust them easily. I decided to thoroughly investigate. I searched online for a top private investigator and hired them. The investigator was empathetic and reassuring, allowing me to trust them fully. Eventually, I rented a one-room apartment near my workplace and started living alone as staying in a hotel wasn't a viable long-term solution. 2 weeks later, I received the investigation report, which confirmed my suspicions. My mother-in-law did have a chronic condition that was not suffering from a severe illness as they claimed. Her pale complexion was a side effect of her medication, not indicative of a life-threatening condition. It appeared that the $30,000 I had given them was used to pay off debts from their gambling addiction. Having believed in the possibility of understanding and reconciliation because we were family, I had persevered. But it seems that was just my wishful thinking. My affection for Patrick was completely gone at this point. I returned home and contacted someone. 3 days later, while at work, an enraged Patrick came over to my department.
Jennifer, you've done something terrible. Because of you, my life is ruined.
Despite the stares from my colleagues, Patrick stormed towards me, furious. I'm working right now. If it's something personal, please wait until later. I spoke coldly, but my husband, Patrick, became enraged and raised his voice.
Don't mess with me. What's with that report? Sneaking around and investigating us through a private investigator? Because you blabbed to the manager about my family matters, I've been demoted. My career is now hopeless. As a wife, isn't it natural to devote yourself to your husband and his family? I merely gave you, an orphan, a chance to look after and take care of my mother. Why do I have to suffer like this?
3 days before, I had met with Patrick's boss, who was also at our wedding, and shared the investigation report along with my decision to divorce, detailing the entirety of our marriage. His boss, though regretful, was angered by Patrick's actions and sympathized with me. My colleagues looked on with concern. Fed up with Patrick's behavior and unwilling to be blamed for his own actions, I argued back. This is nothing but the consequence of your own actions. Conspiring with your mother to deceive me out of my savings for your gambling debts, and then declaring I'm no longer needed after I'm kicked out of the house? I wonder if your mother's surgery was successful. Was our marriage based solely on the inheritance left by my parents? The investigator shared everything with me. If you continue to cause a scene here, I'll have security escort you out. What will you do? If you cause any more trouble, you might end up losing your job for good. Then my husband Patrick cursed.
Damn it, don't think it ends here.
And stormed off somewhere. After that, my colleagues approached me, so I explained everything that had happened in detail. I apologized for causing a disturbance during work hours and for the inconvenience, especially considering how they had celebrated us at our wedding. Everyone unanimously reassured me. Don't worry about it. Being divorced these days isn't unusual or shameful. It's actually good that you found out what kind of person he was early on. Realizing I could no longer trust Patrick as a partner, it was clear that our marriage was irreparable. Patrick probably never loved me from the beginning, and now submitting the divorce papers should sever our ties. I thought it would be straightforward, but it turned out to be anything but that. It seems that Patrick and his mother had squandered even the savings left by his father on gambling. Since the family home is owned outright and my mother-in-law receives a pension, the two of them should be able to live modestly without financial issues. However, both Patrick and his mother believed it was my duty as Patrick's wife to support the household, expecting me to continue covering their living expenses even after being kicked out. Relying on my income and spending theirs on gambling, they vehemently resisted the divorce proceedings when I initiated them. I stated I didn't want compensation or assets division, just for them to give back the $30,000 they stole from me. Patrick argued.
Are you planning to abandon us now? We're the ones who showed you what family is all about, considering you have no parents. We've received numerous notices for missed payments this month. You're still my wife, so forget about divorce. You have a duty to support my family. Deposit the money immediately.
The discussion went nowhere with him insisting like this. Left with no choice, I hired a lawyer and left all communications to them. Patrick repeated his claims to the lawyer, but when we mentioned the possibility of court, he stopped and eventually signed the divorce papers under our terms. It took about 2 months for the divorce to be finalized, but I finally felt relieved to have my peace back. Afterward, Patrick became hated by his boss, and despite being isolated, managed to get by at work for a while. However, it seems he couldn't bear it any longer, and before I knew it, he had resigned on his own accord. A year later, I received a call from an unknown number. A bad feeling stopped me from answering, and a voicemail was left. It was Patrick, crying about his dire situation.
Hey, it's Patrick. I quit my job to start a business with a friend who turned out to be a scam artist. I was left with hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, and we've lost the house. My mom and I are now living in a rundown apartment, and she's seriously ill. I know it's a lot to ask, but could you lend us the $30,000 we returned during the divorce? This time is true, I swear. Please, I'm begging you. I'll be waiting for your call.
It seemed like karma had caught up with them. Their downfall was fitting for them. Whether his mother's illness was true or not, I couldn't tell. Regardless, it was no longer my concern. Learning of their misfortune didn't stir any sympathy in me. I deleted the message and added the number to my block list. For a while, I was the subject of whispers at work, making me feel uncomfortable. But the support of close colleagues and my boss helped me carry myself with dignity. Eventually, the rumors died down, and now I can even joke about those times. Reflecting on my lack of judgment, I've decided to dedicate myself to my career. Looking at my parents' photo on my desk, it seemed as if they were smiling gently, supporting me through my life's journey.